Do you ever feel like you're just drowning in information, but still kind of searching for that clear, insightful understanding?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of needing a shortcut
Right.
to get genuinely informed without wading through everything.
Exactly. We've all been there. And when it comes to business, especially big things like, strategic decisions, it often feels more like art, maybe,
Yeah.
than science.
It really can. And that can lead to, well, inconsistent results, missed opportunities.
Yeah, definitely missed opportunities. The pressure is huge. And without some kind of structure, strategy can feel, frankly, a bit chaotic.
Agreed. Which is why this is such an important topic.
That's precisely the problem we want to tackle in this deep dive. So for this one, we're looking at some key stuff from the Harvard Business Review, the May-June 2025 issue.
And specifically?
Specifically, this really fascinating article by Michael Mankins from Bain & Company. It's called Lean Strategy Making.
Mankins. Good stuff.
Right. So our mission today is basically to pull out the most important bits, the real nuggets from this, and give you that shortcut to understanding how a company can actually standardize its approach to strategy.
And the article itself, it kicks off with a really potent idea, doesn't it? That visual metaphor.
Oh yeah, the pictures. They're striking. These complex things, bikes, ATMs, cameras, all taken apart into their basic pieces.
It's by Todd McClellan, that Things Come Apart series. It really hammers home that even super intricate systems are, at their core, built from standard repeatable parts.
It really does. It kind of reframes how you think about complexity. So our mission for you, the listener, is to walk you through how standardizing these big strategic decisions can actually pay off, like really pay off and give a company a real competitive edge.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack the core problem first. The article hits you with a pretty stark number right away. Over 70% of strategic initiatives fail. 70%.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
Really makes you stop and think.
It does. And the article points to poor execution as the main culprit. So what's going on there? Why such a high failure rate?
Well, it often boils down to how those decisions get made initially. It's frequently informal, ad hoc,
Yeah.
inconsistent across the board.
So different teams doing things differently. No standard playbook.
Exactly. Companies often don't really dig into multiple options properly, or if they do, they might not fully grasp the implications of the choice they land on.
Okay.
So leadership might maybe inadvertently pick a path that's just plain wrong or really hard to implement or maybe even impossible given the circumstances.
And that unstructured way of doing things just burns resources, burns time.
And you don't get the results you wanted. It's a classic scenario.
Right. So if that's the problem, this kind of haphazard approach,
Yeah.
What's the article's solution? How do you bring some method to the madness?
That's where lean strategy making comes in. It's the core idea.
The core idea. Lean manufacturing.
Precisely. We've all heard about lean manufacturing, how it revolutionized production by standardizing everything for efficiency and quality. Think Toyota, Amazon, Intel, Nike.
Right. Getting waste out, speeding things up.
Exactly. So lean strategy making, or LSM, it applies that same kind of rigorous, systematic discipline to making strategic decisions.
Okay, interesting. So taking factory floor principles to the boardroom.
Sort of, yeah. The idea is to make strategy predictable, measurable, repeatable. Get rid of the guesswork, or at least reduce it.
Predictable strategy. That sounds powerful.
It is. The goal, just like in manufacturing, is cut waste, move faster, make smarter choices, and ultimately get a real competitive advantage.
Okay, I'm starting to see the picture. It sounds less like magic and more like engineering. So how does it work in practice? The article breaks LSM down into 3 core parts, right? Pillars, essentially.
Exactly. 3 pillars. The first one is all about standardizing your approach, establishing the blueprint.
The blueprint. Okay, what does that mean?
It means defining a really clear, consistent standard for how choices get made. Not just what the choices are, but the process itself.
Ah, the how.
Yeah. Business, at its heart, is a game of making good choices, right? And good choices start with exploring good alternatives, solid options.
Makes sense.
But many companies, they struggle here. They don't find what the article calls the Goldilocks choices.
Goldilocks choices. Not too hot, not too cold.
Kind of. Not too few options, because then you might miss something great. Not too many, because then you get analysis paralysis. But just the right number of really well-defined, distinct alternatives to properly consider.
So this blueprint, it's more than just a mission statement. It's a framework for the decision-making process itself.
Exactly. It's about the mechanics of choosing.
Can you give us an example? What does that look like on the ground?
Sure. The article uses Dell Technologies back in 2020. Their leadership figured out they needed a fundamental redesign of their whole go-to-market model.
Okay, big change.
Huge. And it wasn't just a vague goal. They got specific. They defined the optimal number of products their sales team should handle. They figured out the right amount of customer contact. They nailed down the best way to give product-specific technical support.
Wow, that's granular.
It is. But it wasn't just, gut feel. It was a comprehensive review driven by the data they had available. And that systematic approach, that how, led to a really significant, successful redesign.
Okay, so they built the blueprint first, then made the choices based on it. That makes a lot of sense. It codifies the process. But even with a great plan, you hit roadblocks, right? Things get in the way of execution. How does LSM handle that?
That brings us neatly to the second pillar, tackling impediments.
The backlog.
The backlog, like in software development.
Similar concept, yeah. Strategic decision-making isn't just picking option A over option B. It's also crucially about allocating the resources, time, money, people, and proactively dealing with obstacles.
The source calls these obstacles backlogs, or sometimes commitments. These are often these lingering, unaddressed issues. They could be strategic, operational, organizational, maybe financial.
Things that are holding back performance.
Exactly. Things stopping you from hitting those desired improvements. If performance is lagging, it's often because these backlogs just aren't being tackled head on.
Right.
And here's a really critical point the article makes. A strategic backlog isn't just naming the problem. It has to define a solution to an important problem.
Ah, that's a key difference. Define the solution, don't just admire the problem. How do companies actually do that? Identify and resolve these backlogs.
Well, let's stick with Dell for a second. To expand their customer coverage, part of their strategy, they didn't just say, we need more coverage. They proactively hired 2,000 extra sales reps.
2,000? Wow.
Yeah. They reduced the size of sales territories to line up better with technical support. They changed the actual product sales applications their teams were using.
So concrete actions tied to the strategy.
Concrete actions addressing specific backlogs. And they even set up a strategic calendar. Regular leadership meetings, forums specifically designed to discuss and resolve these backlog items.
Where they built a process for tackling the obstacles, too.
Precisely. Another great example is Amgen. They have something called the performance dialogue process.
Okay.
Back in 2013, Amgen had these record financial results. Their market value more than tripled under $50 billion to over $160 billion. Huge growth, driven by 3 blockbuster drugs.
Incredible results.
And their process was key. They use this metric monitoring platform. It tracks both leading indicators, things like progress in drug development pipelines, and lagging indicators like your quarterly sales, revenue, profit.
So looking forwards and backwards.
Exactly. And that data feeds directly into these performance dialogue discussions. Leaders use it to pinpoint the root causes when things are underperforming, and then agree on specific corrective actions. Tackling the backlog.
So with Amgen, they're using data not just to see what happened, but to see why and what to fix before it gets worse. They're identifying those backlogs early.
That's the goal. Proactive problem solving based on data.
Which logically takes us to the final piece of this puzzle, doesn't it?
It does. The third pillar is measuring success and monitoring business performance.
Right. You can't improve what you don't measure.
Fundamentally, this pillar is all about continuous measurement. It's about directly linking those strategic decisions you made back in Pillar 1 and the backlog items you tackled in Pillar 2 to tangible business outcomes.
And not just financial outcomes.
Not just financials, though obviously those are critical. It also includes broader goals, market share, growth rates, maybe customer satisfaction scores, things like that. The key is that the performance ambition, as the article calls it, has to be measurable.
Measurable ambition. I like that.
And then you need regular monitoring. That allows companies to see what's working, what's not, and adapt their strategy as needed. It ensures those decisions are actually contributing to better performance over time.
It really sounds like it turns strategy from this big one-off gamble into something more like a continuous improvement loop, almost scientific.
That's a great way to put it, and that's the key insight, really. Strategy isn't some mystical art form, some abstract thing only geniuses can do. It's actually a set of repeatable, measurable processes that can be learned, practiced, and continuously improved, just like any other function in a business. It demystifies the whole thing.
Makes it actionable,
Yeah.
predictable even.
Exactly.
So thinking about the big picture then, the main takeaway here seems to be that standardizing your approach to strategy, applying these lean principles, can genuinely transform a company's ability to execute, to innovate, to actually hit its goals.
Absolutely. It shifts strategy from being this vague concept into something manageable, predictable, and remarkably effective when done right.
It takes the chaos out.
It certainly aims to. And the beauty of it is how adaptable it can be. So for you, the listener, it's worth reflecting on your own approach, whether you're in a huge organization or even just working on personal projects.
Yeah, how do you make your strategic choices?
Exactly. Ask yourself, is it kind of ad hoc? Or do you have something like a blueprint, a way you define options, a plan for tackling obstacles, a method for measuring success?
It's a powerful lens to look through.
It is, and it raises maybe one final thought to chew on.
Go on.
If strategy can be systematized, if it can be manufactured in a way like that bicycle from its standard parts,
Yeah.
what hidden components or maybe unexamined assumptions might you be overlooking in your own plans?